Hi everyone. So this video I want to dedicate it to talking a little bit about my experience with my miscarriages. So far I've had four miscarriages throughout our um, journey with infertility. So we have done IUI cycles with which haven't resulted in any pregnancy. So then we went to do IVF. So our first IVF cycle was in April 26th of 2016. So with the IVF cycle, you pretty much go through medication to help you ovulate. Once you're ovulating and you have mature eggs, the doctors go in to retrieve the eggs and then fertilize it with the sperms. So they wait sometimes 3 days. Most times they wait 5 days to see how many embryos come out of that process. And in our first cycle, we had five eggs that made it past the 5 days. So our first IVF transfer happened in May 14, 2016. We were very happy with the results because we did get a positive pregnancy test. Unfortunately, on June 2nd, 2016, I was sitting in my cousin's room and all of a sudden I felt like I needed to go to the restroom. When I went to the restroom, there was bleeding, a lot of bleeding. Of course, I panicked. I called hubby and told them what was going on. We went to the emergency room and waited what seemed like an eternity. Probably was 2 minutes, but it felt like an eternity to me to see a doctor. When they came in, the first thing they did was draw blood to check for my HCG level just to confirm the pregnancy. And then they checked my cervix. So at the time when we went to the emergency room, my cervix was closed, which was a good sign because that meant that I hadn't miscarried yet. They said to follow up with the doctor. At the moment, there was nothing they can do. And even if I was already experiencing the pregnancy loss, there was nothing that they can do regardless. So the next day, we went to our doctor's office. They did blood work again and they did an ultrasound. So the ultrasound showed that there was still a sac. It also showed that um, there was progress from the last time I was there, but that's all they could see at the moment. So they said they had to wait on the blood work to see if my levels had been rising or decreasing. So we went home, kind of not knowing what to think, not knowing what to feel. At around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., they gave us the call that our HCG levels were actually decreasing. I was devastated. I was devastated, and I felt so lost, so alone. Not a lot of people knew about the pregnancy, so it's not like I could confide on that many people. I didn't know about miscarriages. I didn't know if there was something I did that caused it. I didn't know if it was something I ate, if it was something that I did, if it was something I didn't know. I was lost. I tried to look online. There was information of what you might experience, what might happen, but nothing that gave me the answers I was looking for. I I felt so lost. I felt betrayed by my body. I felt hurt and I don't know, so many feelings, so many feelings. Um, I cried, I mourned. I said, okay, Rocio, you need to move forward. So we decided to do another transfer. So on July 28th of 2016, we did our second transfer. Once again, that was successful. So we got our big fat positive. We were excited. We were like, okay, this is it. Some women do go through miscarriage once, but two times is very unlikely. So this will be the baby. This will be our rainbow baby. A few weeks after that, I started experiencing bleeding again. We went to the doctor. We did some ultrasounds and did blood work. The blood work showed that the levels were still rising. The um, the ultrasound showed that the baby was still growing. So bleeding, although you read online that bleeding usually means a miscarriage, bleeding can happen for many reasons. So they just said to be cautious, monitor the bleeding and come back in a few days to check for progress. So we did that. The bleeding kept coming back on and off. We went back. We saw the heartbeat on the monitor, so that was a progress. That was something exciting. Um, the levels were still rising, so we felt we were on the clear. We went back a week after. Unfortunately, they couldn't see the heartbeat any longer. And when they did the blood work, my HCG levels were actually decreasing, which means that um, I was going to start having a miscarriage. At that point, they gave me two options. They gave me three options. They could let me miscarry naturally, which meant I would have to wait till my body decided that it was no longer pregnant and then release the embryo. I could take medication um, to induce the miscarriage and pass it on my own. And the third option was to do a DNC. I decided to do the DNC for the simple fact that I knew I would not be able to go through the first miscarriage all over again, of seeing the blood, seeing um, seeing the embryo pass on its own. So I decided to do the DMC because I knew that that was going to be less traumatic for me, um, especially being that it was going to be my second time. So the DNC happened on September 8th of 2016. Once again, I was devastated. I was trying to look for answers. Unfortunately, no answers were given. So we kind of just went with the flow as okay, sometimes it happens. Let's try again. Let's be a little more cautious. Let's, do certain things a little differently so maybe that the results might be different. On November 3rd of 2016, we did our third transfer. Um, we decided to transfer the last two embryos that we had in storage to give ourselves more of a chance. We did get a pregnancy, a positive pregnancy test, but unfortunately, when we went to get blood work, the levels were decreasing. So they consider that to be a chemical pregnancy test. So basically, what that means is that your body kind of thinks that it's pregnant, but in reality, is not. So, since we didn't have any more embryos to transfer, we had to do a whole new cycle of IVF. We did blood work, we did testings. So in May 25th of 2017 was when we finally were able to do our second egg retrieval. So with that egg retrieval, we actually had 17 eggs, which 16 of those fertilized and 11 made it past the 5 days um, of blasphemy. We decided this time that we wanted to test our embryos to make sure that each and every embryo that we would transfer were going to be normal embryos, that we were not going to go through the hardship of experiencing yet another miscarriage. So out of those 11 that were tested, 6 came back normal. We were happy. We were very, very happy with the numbers. We are very happy with the numbers because there's people who have many, many embryos and none of them make it back normal. Our fourth transfer was on August 5th of 2017. We were ready. We thought this was gonna be it because now we have our normal embryo. We were hoping for the best. We did get a positive pregnancy test. We went for the blood work. The levels were very, very low. So at the time, they kind of were not giving us too much hope. But at the end of the day, hope is the last thing you lose, right? So we were going every other day to check the levels. They were rising, however, they weren't right. They weren't doubling how expected. So they slowly started letting me know that more than likely it was going to end in a miscarriage, which it did on August 11th. Um, that's when I started experiencing the bleeding. That's when everything became of a, oh my God, yes, this is yet another miscarriage. Um, you think it would get easier with the miscarriages, but it doesn't. Um, I don't want to say that I felt this one less, but because I knew from a very early stage of the pregnancy that it more than likely was going to result in a miscarriage, it was a little less hurtful. And maybe it was just because I was more prepared, because maybe I had done more research about it, because maybe I knew by then that it wasn't my fault, that it wasn't anything that I have done, that it just really is things that just happen, unfortunately. Um, so after that, we went through a break. Aside from that, we also were experiencing some problems with my hormone levels, so we couldn't do any transfer even if we wanted to. So we decided to pretty much just call 2017 a year of not trying to have a baby. So finally in 2018, we said, okay, we're ready. Let's try this um, once again. So on May 1st, sorry, on March 1st of 2018, we had our fifth embryo transfer. Once again, we decided to transfer two just because we were like, okay, it's now or no or never. So we transferred two embryos out of the six that we have. Um, and we did get our pregnancy test. We finally got our pregnancy test positive, and we went to the levels, and the levels were pretty good, pretty high at that. And we had the ultrasound, and sure enough, two beautiful embryos had implanted. On our second day of testing, the levels were still rising, which was a good sign. One of the embryos wasn't uh, developing as good as the other one, but sometimes that happens with multiple babies. One grows a little bit faster than the other. Sometimes they will catch up. Sometimes the other one will advance. So there wasn't too much to worry about. On the following appointment after that, we definitely noticed that the the one embryo was still having trouble growing, and we were able to see a a fetal pole on both of them. So that was exciting, and that was a good news. So we were continue driving, we were continue going, and we were happy. On the um, visit after that, unfortunately, the one embryo that wasn't growing fast enough did stop growing. The fetal pole definitely did stop. So we knew that we had lost that one baby. Um, Although I was sad that I had lost the baby, I was still happy because we still had one baby growing. And I knew that I had it to be strong and positive for that baby that was growing. And that I'll never forget my baby that I lost, but I still needed to continue on for my other baby that was still there. So everything was going great. Our next appointment after that, we saw the fetal pole again. The baby was there. It actually was kind of sort of moving around a little bit. So we were excited. At this point, we were graduated from our specialist. So now I was able to go to a regular gynecologist without having to worry about the regular visits to the fertility doctor. So this is about 8 weeks, 9 weeks into the pregnancy. Um, they did blood work. The levels were good. They did an ultrasound. The baby was definitely there. They were able to see the fetal pole. So everything was going as planned. At around 10 weeks slash 11 weeks, we went back in. We were able to hear the heartbeat of our baby, which was a very exciting moment. I was excited. I was over the moon just listening to my baby's heartbeat. So we decided to buy a Doppler to have at home. So they tell you that it could be a good thing or a bad thing to get a Doppler for the house, just because sometimes at that stage the baby's so small that sometimes you can't hear the heartbeat, or it becomes difficult to hear the heartbeat. So sometimes they'll suggest you not to do it. But I was like, okay, if I don't hear it, I won't panic. It's not a big deal. So we bought it. I got it home. We were listening to the heartbeat. I was able to find the heartbeat. I kind of knew where the baby was located, so I was able to find the heartbeat and listen to it. And it was music to my ears. Listening to my baby's heartbeat was definitely music to my ears. I pretty much did it every night after that. Um, at around 11 weeks and 5 days, I did my routine. I went in, I checked for the heartbeat. It was there. Great. I went to bed thinking nothing of it. On the next day, I decided that I wanted to hear the heartbeat again. So I did. I looked for it. It was a little difficult, but not too crazy. But I was able to hear the heartbeat. Little did I know that that was the last time that I was going to be able to hear the heartbeat. That night, I have gotten home, and I don't know, something inside of me kind of told me to check on the baby. So I tried to hear the heartbeat, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. I was going crazy. I was like, well, maybe I'm panicking too much. Maybe, the baby moved to an area where I can't hear it, so I'm not going to stress it. I'll try again tomorrow. I wake up the next day, and I try again to look for the heartbeat, and I couldn't find it. At this point, I am panicked. At this point, it is a Saturday night. No, sorry. It was actually Sunday morning, and I didn't know where to go. I wanted to find a place where I can confirm whether it wasn't or wasn't. I was able to find a location in Manhattan that does ultrasounds on Sundays. So I went. The ladies did the routine. They got my information. They were happy for me, so they wanted to make sure that I had all the information and the recording if, when the time came to it. So they gathered all my information. When we went in, we did see the baby. The baby was still there, but there was no fetal pole. They were trying to stay as calm as possible, and they were trying to be as supportive as possible. Of course, they can't tell you right there and then whether it is or isn't there. They'll just say, I'm not able to see it. However, just follow up with your doctor so that they can do a thorough test. So I called my doctor. I told him, what had happened, that I was trying to hear the heartbeat, and I couldn't find it. I went to a tech, and I couldn't find it. So he suggested that I go to the emergency room, which we did. Waiting. We did more waiting than anything there. They also try to look for the fetal pole, or they try to hear the heartbeat, and unfortunately they weren't able to. So of course they also tell me that I need to follow up with my doctor. So we go to the doctor's office the next day, and they did an ultrasound uh, to check for the heartbeat. Because at first they had tried with a Doppler and they weren't successful. So to make sure that there was a fetal pole, and maybe they just weren't listening or hearing it, they decided to do the actual ultrasound, vaginal ultrasound, to see the heartbeat. Um, Once again, we saw baby, but there was no movement and no fetal pole. So the next decision was to once again wait for a natural miscarriage or to do the DNC. So once again, I decided to do the DNC because of the same reason I stated before. I just couldn't put myself through that, especially now being at 12 weeks. Not that it's a full grown baby, but now it definitely had features. It definitely had a face and hands and feet, and so I just couldn't put myself through that. So we scheduled for the DNC. This miscarriage was the most devastating one for me, um, because I really felt like this was it. I really felt like we were just about to cross the finish line, um, and we didn't. Uh, I was heartbroken. I was completely in pieces. Um, just because I had already come attached to the thought of being a mom, and we were literally a week away from announcing our pregnancy to the world. And instead of announcing the pregnancy, now we were announcing yet another miscarriage. So my last miscarriage was the motivator to starting the videos. I made the decision to make this video and to document this journey because I don't want any other woman to feel the way that I felt going through this journey. Um, Not because I didn't have a support system, because like I've mentioned in my other videos, I've had a great support system, but mostly because it's not the same listening to someone who has gone through the journey. It's not the same to know that there are other people that have gone through what you're going through. Um, and know that you'll make it, know that you'll survive, know that you will get to that end goal at some point. These videos, I want to motivate women to speak out. I want to motivate women to not feel ashamed, not feel guilty when they have a miscarriage. Because I definitely did, especially on that first miscarriage. I thought I caused it. I thought I had done something wrong to cause it. I was so lost and so heartbroken and so like, oh my God, why did I do this to myself? And I just want all the women out there seeing this video that you didn't do anything to cause the miscarriage. Um, Unfortunately, miscarriages are one of those things that really just happen. Some with no explanation, and some are beyond your control. So it's not something that you could have done or should have done that would have changed the outcome. So just know that it's not your fault. I hate the fact that there's not enough information out there to help women that are going through miscarriage. I hate the fact that they only do the general stuff and not really give you more answers and more information, um, of how to go about it and how to you know, go through it. And I would love to change that. I want to be able to provide as much information as possible to be that support system that these women need when they're going through this. Um, because miscarriage is not easy, and although you may have people who are sorry that you're going through it, many people don't have a clue of what you're going through or how you're feeling or any of that. And with that, I also want to say, for those of you who are watching this and haven't experienced a miscarriage, please be mindful of what you say to people who have gone through a miscarriage. um, it's okay to just say I'm sorry and leave it at that. It's okay to say I'm sorry for your loss. I am here if you need anything. And just leave it at that. You don't have to go on to say, oh, you'll get pregnant again, or oh, things happen for a reason, because those are not helpful words at all. If anything, they add more to it. It's like an insult to an injury. You don't know if that person will be able to get pregnant again. You don't know if it's gonna be okay. So for you to say those things, it's just not pleasant. Just be mindful of your words, and definitely know that it's okay to kind of just say sorry and leave it at that. That's all we need. No more words. Um, the journey still continues. Hopefully, there will be no more miscarriages. Hopefully, I'll finally be able to have my babies in my arms soon. So we'll see. We'll see. But ladies, keep your head up. Um, know that you're not alone. Know that it's not your fault, and that somehow we find a way to make it through. And I'm not trying to say that you'll forget about the pregnancy as if never happened. I'm not trying to say that you'll forget about the miscarriage and that you just move on, because you don't. I mean, you don't spend every day out of the year remembering or thinking about it, but you definitely still think about it. You definitely still kind of think of like, oh, well, I would have been this many weeks, or I would have been feeling the baby, or, I would have been having the baby. There's definitely moments when that happens. I also want to remind you that it doesn't matter if you lost a baby at 5 weeks. It doesn't matter if you lost it at 10 weeks. It doesn't matter if you lost it at 22 weeks, 40 weeks, whenever. A loss is a loss, and it's just as painful. Um, I love you, ladies. Like I said, stay strong, stay motivated, stay true. Until next video.